and welcome to a brand new episode of the TraxionGG podcast. Today we are joined by none other than Jimmy Broadbent, someone who doesn't need an introduction. But this is a podcast, and therefore I have to do an introduction. So, without further ado, Jimmy Broadbent is the leading sim racing content creator on the internet. You probably already subscribe to him on YouTube, and if you don't, you've definitely watched one of his videos. Jimmy is successfully transitioning from the virtual world to real world motorsport, and this year he's partaking in the 2022 Praga Cup, a brand new championship for this year. He's teamed up with Scottish driver Geordie Mutch, and at the end of last season they actually won a couple of races in the Brit Car Series. Now they're in this single make championship and they're aiming for the championship. They are currently second overall in the standings at the time of recording, after a second place finish at Oulton Park. The two are driving for the Fanatec Praga Team 87 entry this season. The conversation you're about to hear is between me and Jimmy at a cold winter's morning in the Silverstone paddock, which is perhaps why the audio quality isn't quite up to our usual standards. However, it is still perfectly listenable, as you're about to hear. Jimmy was also in top form, which is a big help. So, without further ado, Shed Sheeran on the TraxionGG podcast.
We're at Silverstone today. Why is that?
Yeah, so we're at Silverstone because it's the sort of media day for Praga Cup, new series in the UK on the Brit Car calendar. Of course, last year we were part of the Brit Car calendar, but now we're our own one-make series. And it's also acts as our first big test as well. So busy day today.
Yeah, there's a lot of going on. I think we're in the, what would you call this, like the... What is this called?
Praga tent.
The Praga tent. It's very nice. It's got some lovely branding going on there. Praga Cup 2022. So just before we get to 2022, let's talk about last season. A couple of race wins there at the end of the year at Donington.
Yeah.
That must have felt pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I said it at the time, and I'll say it again now. It was one of those proper, like, this is my dream to achieve this, to stand on the podium in a real event. Yeah. And I would have been happy with third, honestly, but be on the top step twice.
Why not aim for third when you can get the top step, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but I thought, well, it's going to be tricky, and then suddenly, bam, there we are. Right at the top of both races, and it was a very special feeling. I'm really hoping we can do more of that this year.
Yeah, well, I was just going to ask, so aims for this year is probably to build upon that, right? Yeah. Potentially aim for a championship, perhaps?
I mean, it would be nice to aim for a championship. I mean, this is primarily a Pro-Am series, but there are some pairings where that might not quite be the case. But I think I've got Geordie alongside me. He's been an amazing coach last year. He was why I found I need to be at the tool last year, pretty much. And now I've got him beside me every round, coaching me every time we get out of the car. So my goal is to be somewhere near him, and if I can do that, then we've got a really strong pairing. But I've got a lot of work to do.
Right. Well, I mean, I was going to say, God, he's pretty rapid.
Yeah.
And so having him alongside you must be pretty invaluable. But I'm sure you've got your own skill set that you can help him with as well, right? It must be. How's the team dynamic going?
Well, right now, Geordie is very firmly sort of the pro driver. So so right now in the background, I don't know if you can hear the cars at all. There's one. He's out there just shaking the car down because it's completely brand new. And that's something a pro would do, to go and sort of make sure everything's okay as it should be. But last year we ended up in a spot where he was the fastest pro and I was the fastest am. So if we can do that again, that's amazing. But obviously it's not as easy as jumping in the car and doing that. It's still a lot of work.
Yeah, and also there's several other cars as well that you've got to beat, and who knows how quick they're going to be, right? Just in terms of the car then, for those who aren't aware, to me it looks like a Le Mans prototype that's sort of been miniaturised a bit. Maybe it's been on a boil wash or something. Yeah. Is that an appropriate description? Because it's a proper piece of kit.
It's been down the gym. That's a bit like me, really. It's shrunk down a bit. But yeah, I think if you were to sort of categorise it somewhere, so like LMP 3.5 sort of thing. Okay. I think it's a bit quicker in the corners than LMP3 car is, but it doesn't have quite the same grunt. About 350 horsepower, weighs about 650 kilograms, full slick tyres, lots of aero. It's I think the cheapest aero experience out there at the moment, and it's made me realise that F1 drivers are actually beasts, because my neck after my first race went in that car. Right. Imagine that times two. I've done I get around one corner in an F1 car.
Yeah, I mean that's a good learning curve though, to learn the downforce for the affordability and the price and the entry level on the Praga machine there. And speaking of which, I feel like it's almost virtually impossible to replicate the feeling of downforce on a sim. So how do you? First of all, when you first felt downforce in this way, how did that feel? And then how are you training to then respond to that?
But that's the thing. That downforce is sort of this mysterious art that you learn.
You can't see it. You can just hear about it. And most people have never tried it.
Exactly. You don't really know what it is until you experience it, and then you go around one corner and you go, "Oh, that's what it is."
Yeah.
And then you just sort of go from there. I mean, the best way of describing it to someone who doesn't really get it is get your very strong friend to grab your head and put it to one side and try and resist it. That's what downforce is like.
And still drive at the same time. And hit the apex
straight. Yeah, get the throttle at the right point, all that stuff. That's what it's like. And the first time I experienced it, I thought, "Oh man, I'm rapid here," whilst I've been overtaken around the outside by another guy. I was like, "Okay, I'm not quite." So, it's a pretty cool thing to experience.
So it just takes time to build up and get used to it, and then get the confidence to then know that okay, the car will stick around the certain corner. Right?
Well, yeah, I mean, your brain's screaming at you, saying, "This is a terrible idea. What are you doing? Like, you're going to kill us." And then the car goes, "No, you're actually fine." And the first time you get sort of validation that the car sticks, your brain goes, "Oh, all right.
Okay.
So let's do it again," but you do have to overcome it.
Okay. So does that almost mess with your mind a bit when you do go back on a simulator? Because is it actually hard to then readjust back to that or not?
No, I find it quite a clear difference when you get in the sim as a car. People mentioned that to me before, like, do you have trouble going from one to the other? And no, not really, because they are quite different experiences. I mean, so in the paddock here, there's a completely different build-up to get into the car. There's mechanics buzzing around, the car itself is loud, it vibrates, you're plugged in, you're in your own little world in a car. In sim, you're texting your mate going down the straight, got a cup of tea to the right of you,
Yeah, bullshitting on Discord.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the stream or whatever, yeah. Okay, cool. So today, test day, the media day. Have you used your? I think at home you've got the Automobilista setup with a mod on there and the full rig. Have you been practicing over the weekend?
Yeah, just to sort of reacquaint myself with the car a bit. We haven't driven the car. We obviously got out of it at the end of October, and that was the last time we drove it. I haven't done anything since then. So a lot of that it will come back quickly, I imagine. But it's just sort of remembering what the car is capable of. But a lot of that's already in there. It's just muscle memory. But it's just sort of refreshing that and going out and just topping it up.
So right now, maybe a few hours away from you getting behind the wheel. Is the adrenaline started already, or is it when the helmet goes on?
I mean, not really. I mean, the first night I did one of these, I didn't sleep.
Right.
I couldn't sleep, and last night straight out. It's one of those things where you're a bit more relaxed.
You get used to it.
I'm sure once I get in the car, the heart will start going a bit, and I'll get prepared. But that just comes back down again as soon as you're out there and focusing on what you're doing. It's something you get used to, which is odd to say, given that I spent so long just being a sim guy.
But is there a comparison though between if you're in a very serious esports race and you have to be focused and you're representing a team of sponsors? Do you get a similar sort of adrenaline rush or focus to this, or is it another level above?
I say that, like, in a esport race, your mind works harder than it does in one of these.
Okay,
because like a lot of cases, esport drivers are sort of their own engineer, and they're doing things on the fly. If you watch someone like Geordie, I watch him going around in ACC, and he's like going down the straight, checking the menu, seeing the timing for people on the straight. I'm like, what? And what the hell are you doing? Like, focus on what you're doing. But I'd say that it's more mentally taxing. But of course, that's then offset in the real car by the fact your body's getting battered as well. But I think there's definitely a comparison there. If you have a strong mind, and this is something that I think actually helped me when I got in the car, is I already knew all the racecraft and like where to put the car and all that. Right. So like I was able to jump in at a higher level than someone who just never jumped in before. And for the first round of the season, I was quicker than my teammate, who was the champion from the year before. So I mean, I think that says enough.
It speaks volumes for yourself and sim racing, which is cool. Yeah, one thing, some people who perhaps aren't really into sim racing, they'll always say something like, "Oh, well, it's good for learning the track," but that's kind of about it. I feel like it improves your racecraft, how to position car, especially if you're doing competitive racing, where there are other cars around you in the virtual world. Is that true, or am I wrong there as well? Because in Britcar last year, there's many cars on the grid. There's traffic to overcome as well, and if you're doing like endurance sim racing events, there's a similar challenge.
No, I think a lot of people, when it comes to sim racing, like the sort of naysayers are those that go on a sim at a trade show somewhere where it's been set up to be all crazy and mad, and obviously it's nowhere near realistic, but it's meant to wow you so you buy one. Right?
They've got one of those fans for the wind. I mean, one of those at a trade show, and then there's like
a motion sensor which tries to take your neck off, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But that isn't how it is in real life. And I think if you have a properly set up sim and you spend a couple of hours in it, you will immediately see the link and the benefit benefit of doing that. I mean, we use Motec when we practice at home to watch the like brake traces and sort of the curvature of how we're getting on the throttle and stuff like that. And we do exactly the same here. Exactly the same.
Yeah.
So that is directly transferable skill.
Yeah, and also there's also if you're playing like starting off with like Gran Turismo and then going into other ones, it's teaching you what a damper is and what a suspension click is and how downforce might affect the balance of the car. So there's all these other additional skills, isn't there, as well? I've got to do a slight handbrake in the conversation because I can't help but notice you've got Fanatec written all over you. Yeah. It's not on your forehead, but it is on on your torso and your legs and everything. So is that a new relationship for this year?
Yeah, really happy to sort of talk about that. We've been chatting to Fanatec for a while, trying to find a way to work together and trying to, because I mean, world's biggest sim racing hardware company, and I've been around for a few years in sim racing myself, so I thought it'd be really nice to try and work something out. And they've really enjoyed seeing the series from last year and sort of the progress, and I think that there's something that we can work with there. And I think, of course, having all that gear at home as well is part of the preparation here, so it just makes sense to work together. But it's amazing to have them. They're our main sponsor this year, so to walk around with our logos is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I also think just philosophically they're a really good company because they're doing these cool partnerships with sponsoring yourself in this real world sport, but they also sponsor a load of other motorsport projects and teams. And then also they have things like the Bentley Pikes Peak steering wheel or the BMW DTM wheel, right, which is like it's the same device on the same production line. So I think this just further, hopefully, strengthen the ties between the sim world and the real world.
Yeah, I've got one of those wheels, the M4 GT3.
The M4 one? Oh, yeah, nice. Yeah. No, I've not had the privilege yet. I'm trying to speak about the Puma WRC one, though. I'm really excited for that one coming soon.
Yeah, that one too. Yeah, isn't it mad that, imagine 10 years ago a sim racing wheel would win the Monte Carlo with Seb Loeb? It's
just bananas.
Yeah.
I mean, Seb Loeb coming back and winning is amazing as well, but the fact that sim racing wheel was there just ticked it off for me. I was brilliant.
I'm not attributing the whole the win to the wheel, but obviously seeing that as a sim racing fan, you're like, wow, like my hobby is now realised, and like there's a path forming. So.
It justifies, or helps justify thousands of people's hobbies as well, right? Because it is. Sometimes it can be too serious, sometimes it can be too fun, but Fanatec's doing a really nice job there of bringing everything together. Yeah, that's cool. So, any other exciting plans for the year that you can talk about?
I mean, hopefully another race series being announced soon.
I'm intrigued.
But I can't really talk about
that's all right. That's
for
all right,
now. But fingers crossed. It seems to be quite likely, but it's just working out logistics and all that stuff. You know how it is. I mean, like getting anywhere is difficult. Aside from that, really just my own personal efforts, like the Time Attack car that we're entering UK Time Attack this year, the Mad MX-5.
Right. Yeah.
SR20 powered, 600 horsepower.
How's it going?
Right now it's a shell, so I can say it's got lots of power, but it hasn't. But it will.
Okay, all right. Is it a rusty shell?
I mean, they all were at some point.
They've all disintegrated, unfortunately. I think
the only things that are actually original in that car, the rear lights and the door handles.
Right, so it's Trigger's broom, which is an old UK reference for those in America. Sorry.
Exactly. It's gone through a pretty wild transformation. So I mean, we're going to be doing a lot of driving this year.
Right.
Which I'm happy because I sort of wanted to progress that way, because I was quite fearful that last season was like, how'd you go back to the sim, and obviously once you've tasted it in real life, you don't really want to cut this out. I mean, I still love sim racing and love what it can do in the competition, but at the same time, nothing will compare to hurtling down a straight at 150 mile an hour on one of these things. So
and any sims or games you're looking forward to playing in the recent weeks? I should say, full disclosure, we're speaking before a couple of games come out, but this is going to come out after that. It's all very confusing, but anything you're looking forward to?
Yeah, also, I'm really looking forward to GT7. I mean, I'm a massive Gran Turismo fan. That might sound biased because I work for them, but GT is a game that got me into sim racing and racing in the first place. I wouldn't be here without.
I don't think you're the only person.
Yeah,
that's in that scenario, right?
It's also the reason why I own so many JDM Rust buckets. So thank you very much, Kazunori, for making me spend so much money on Rust. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm actually quite interested in the Grid Legends thing, because I think games need storylines. The racing games need a storyline.
Right, yeah.
As long as it ain't cringe, like the F1 2021 storyline thing was a bit cringe at times. But it's hard to get that right. You got
I suppose they're going for like a sort of popcorn, not Fast and Furious, but like a laid-back chill thing. So we'll have to see about that. Yeah, that should be interesting as well. And there's all sorts of other things going on in the world of sim racing. I was also just going to ask, you had the former Stig round recently. That was a really cool video to watch. So if you haven't, go check that out. What was he like on your own sim rig, sat in your own sweat? I don't know where I'm going with that, but it's sat in your sweat. There's the former Stig. That must be pretty cool.
It was pretty amazing to have him there. I mean, he rocks up in a 911 as he does.
Oh, standard.
Yeah,
right, okay.
And parks over my neighbour's driveway. No, but it was really cool. And to be honest, even though I sort of knew him from last season, I still felt so nervous because I've never had like a massive one-on-one with him. It's always been like, "How you doing, mate? Good to see you."
Right.
But really cool. Those are really fun stories about all the stuff he's done. Obviously, he could talk for years about all the stuff he's done. And
he's got a couple of good books as well.
Yeah, that as well.
And there's lots of stories in there. So yeah, he's been very
retail.
Yeah. Cheap plug.
You owe me for this, Stiggy. No, but he's a really sound guy. And he, actually, for someone who said he was quite nervous about not being good at the sim, he was pretty decent. He
got there in the end, didn't he?
He just struggled a bit with something that actually I was quite interested in. It was the braking, and fitting when the car locks up.
Well, what I noticed is, he was right foot braking. A lot of sim racers, it's all about the left foot braking. But if you come from a motorsport background, there is a school of thought that right foot braking. I know, like Andy Prior, for example, he won like 3 world championships right foot braking, so it's definitely possible. So, was he still doing right foot braking all the way through the day?
Yeah, all the way through the day. I was really interested because, when I do right foot braking in a prototype, I don't quite get the pressure I want straight away.
Right, yeah.
The left foot is far more tuned for it, So,
but then in a road car, if you left foot brake, you just come to an emergency stop and you're like, what the heck?
Go for the windscreen, don't you?
Yeah, it's weird.
But yeah, I mean, he did that all that for the day, but he learned, he listens, and it was very weird sort of saying to the Stig, "You can find a bit of time there, mate." I can imagine talking to myself when I was a kid and saying I was going to be showing this guy around the circuit. So that's pretty mad, yeah.
That's cool. All right, well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. You've got a very busy day ahead, I'm sure, plenty of studying to do, and then some driving later on, which is really, really cool. So I just wish you all the best for the season ahead. And Praga and whatever else you're doing on YouTube as well. We'll be watching. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, mate. Good chat.
Cheers.
There we go then. Jimmy Broadbent on the TraxionGG podcast. Thank you very much for listening. If you're on YouTube, please do like and subscribe. But don't forget, you can also listen to the podcast through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Google, all the podcast platforms. And if you are listening there already, thank you very much. Please do follow, subscribe, and give a rating. It's free and it helps out the podcast tremendously. If you aren't aware, we're in the midst of a new season, the 3rd of the TraxionGG podcast, where we interview people from the world of racing games, sim racing and esports. Our recent one is with Jun Kasu, the creator of Art of Rally. We've got one with Roman Grosjean. And next week is going to be a special episode about Accesso Corsa Competizione. Please don't also forget to follow team87.gg, which is Jimmy Broadbent's new website and social media platform where you can find out more about his real-world motorsport activities. Otherwise, thank you very much. Keep it pinned.